Greetings to all fans of good movies. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a movie based on a true story called 8 Below.
All right, and I'll be back. I promise.
The film is set on a research base in Antarctica. Guide Jerry Shepard wakes up his dogs in the morning to feed them fish. At that moment, a plane lands nearby, piloted by his old friend Kathy. She has brought the Doctor of Geological Sciences and his research equipment to the base. The friend of the protagonist, Engineer Cooper, also participates in unloading the equipment. Later, over a game of poker, Jerry learns that the Doctor's goal is to find a rare meteorite that has fallen near Melbourne. The road to the mountain runs on thin ice, so there is no way to get there by rover. The foothills are only accessible by dog sled. Jerry says that it is too dangerous to make such a crossing at the end of the season, but the team leader insists on seeing it through. Shepard agrees, after which he leaves to prepare for the crossing.
Hey, Maya. You say one more trip, huh? That's my girl.
The next morning, Jerry gives the Doctor a brief briefing and introduces the dogs. In the first pair are the lead sled dogs, Maya and Old Jack. Behind them are Shorty and the young but promising Max. Next are the twins, Truman and Dewey. And at the end of the sled are the strong Eskimo Huskies, Shadow and Buck. After taking a memento photo and saying goodbye to the team, the group hits the road. The Doctor has taken a lot of heavy equipment with him, so the sled is heavily loaded. Soon the rocky section of the trail ends, and our characters have to cross over thin ice. Shepard decides to change the type of hitch so that the dogs can fan out. This significantly reduces the load on the ice, and if one of the dogs fails, it won't drag the entire sled with it. When Jerry gets to the glacier, he turns the sled over to the Doctor and goes ahead to plot the route. Finding a crack, he commands Maya to turn left, but young Max doesn't listen and leads half of the dogs behind him. As a consequence, the sled, along with the Doctor, falls into a rift. Jerry immediately rushes to the sled and commands the dogs to pull as hard as they can, so the scientist and all this cargo are saved.
Next time you decide to go to Melbourne, don't pack so much stuff.
In the evening, the group sets up camp. The Doctor checks the route, and Shepard treats the wounds of his dogs. The next day, the polar explorers arrive at the foot of the mountain. Here, they plan to spend an entire week searching for the rare meteorite. Meanwhile, a specialist from the Meteorological Center contacts the base. He informs them about the approaching big cyclone and advises to quickly return to the base of all members of the expedition. This information is relayed to Shepard by radio. He immediately decides to abort the mission, but the Doctor does not want to give up so easily.
You gotta take chances for the things you care about.
The polar explorers decide to delay for another day. The search begins, Jerry laying out a safe route, and the Doctor closely examining the rocks. Soonluk smiled at the Doctor. He found just what he was looking for. After that, the group immediately sets off for the base. On the way, Jerry notices a bloody trail from one of the dogs and stops the sled to treat Old Jack's wound. At this point, the Doctor tries to contact the base via radio. However, the snow beneath his feet collapses, and he's on thin ice and then submerging underwater. Shepard gives Maya a rope and commands him to crawl to the Doctor. Once again, with the help of the dogs, the man is saved. By this time, a storm has overtaken the group. Additionally, the Doctor is badly frostbitten and needs immediate medical attention. Jerry approaches Maya, makes her the leader, and commands her to lead the sled home as soon as possible. Under such harsh conditions, our heroes have a long way to go back. In the evening, Katie hears the dogs barking and notices the sled. Clever Maya finds her way home, and the group makes it safely to the base.
How are the dogs?
Good. I just fed them.
Dr. McLaren requires urgent medical care, so the team leader decides to fly the whole team to safety at McMurdo Station. Unfortunately, there is not enough room on the plane, so Harrison offers to leave the dogs at the base and come back for them when the new shift arrives for wintering. Jerry wants to stay and look after his huskies, but the team lead is against it, considering his severe frostbite on his hands and the need for medical attention. Before leaving, Cooper tightens the dogs' collars to prevent them from slipping off. Afterward, the whole group, amidst the barking of the dogs, leaves the base. On the way, Jerry passes out and wakes up at the McMurdo Station. He learns from his friends that, due to the weather conditions, all wintering expeditions have been canceled, and the dogs remain abandoned at the base. Protagonist disagrees with this decision. He goes to the command headquarters to seek permission for the last flight. Unfortunately, the commander cannot grant his request. He informs Jerry that there are 10 more groups of polar explorers left at the bases, and they will be the first to be evacuated. By the time it comes to the dogs, severe frosts will have arrived, making further flights impossible.
We can't just leave them out there.
There's nothing I can do.
Back in the United States, Shepard tries to find a way to return and save his huskies. However, he faces rejection everywhere, as no one is willing to take such risks to save the animals. Finally, Jerry decides to seek help from Dr. McLaren. He asks the doctor to finance the evacuation using funds from the Science Fund, since it was only thanks to the dogs that they were able to get the valuable meteorite. However, the doctor also refuses Jerry, explaining that it would be suicidal to fly there at this time. He suggests that Jerry try to forget about this unfortunate incident.
Forget. And you can do that.
Meanwhile, at the Victoria base, the dogs have spent 15 days alone. By this point, almost all of them had managed to remove their collars. Only Max and old Jack remain chained up. While chasing a seagull, Max also manages to break free from the chain. The entire pack rushes to chase the bird. Maya is the only one left with Jack. She tries to raise the leader, but Jack is already too weak. The dog licks Jack goodbye and then joins the rest of the pack. The dogs devise an ambush with the help of clever Maya and successfully catch several seagulls. They bring the captured birds to her, solidifying Maya as the new leader. On the 50th day of their journey, the dogs notice the northern lights in the sky. One of the twins chases the reflections in the snow, unaware of the ledge, and falls off a cliff, sustaining fatal injuries. Dewey is left lying on the ground, and the rest of the dogs gather around him. In the morning, the pack awakens, but it becomes apparent that Dewey did not survive the night. Nevertheless, the dogs must press on, and Maya leads them forward. Only Max refuses to leave his friend until the last moment. Due to a violent storm, he becomes separated from the pack and loses their trail.
Now remember, the ocean has a mind of its own. So respect the ocean. Stay alert.
By this time, Jerry had given up on seeking funding and had taken a job as an instructor at a children's pool on the mainland. One day, Kathy visited him at work, having learned that he had abandoned his plans for another polar expedition. Concerned about this, she decided to check on him. During their conversation, it becomes apparent that Jerry is still troubled by the loss of the dogs. He couldn't retrieve them and carries a burden of guilt. Kathy tells him that hiding and worrying indefinitely is not the solution. Jerry needs to come to terms with what happened and stop blaming himself. After their conversation, Jerry visits the kennel where his dogs were raised. He intends to apologize to the dog handler for his actions. However, the handler tells him there's nothing to apologize for. He advises Jerry to find something that will help him find inner peace as soon as possible and emphasizes that dwelling on regret is not the answer. Upon returning home, Jerry prepares warm clothing and gathers his savings. He decides to make his own way to the South Pole. On his journey, he stops by a gala event where Dr. McLaren is being honored with an award for the meteorite discovery. In his speech, the scientist expresses gratitude to all the employees of the Antarctic base, acknowledging that without their help, he wouldn't be standing on that stage. Spotting his savior among the audience, Dr. McLaren approaches Jerry to talk. Jerry congratulates him on receiving the grant and shares his own audacious plan.
And if you don't?
It's like you said to me the day that storm came in. You got to take chances for the things you care about.
In the evening, as he puts his son to bed, Doctor notices a child's drawing of a dog sled. This prompts him to enter his office and begin calculating the expenses required for his new polar expedition. Meanwhile, the dogs have endured 152 days without human companionship. During this time, the pack managed to discover a supply depot, and Max was able to make his way back to the Victoria base alone. While wandering around, he stumbles upon the frozen carcass of a killer whale washed ashore. Unfortunately, another predator was already feasting on it, preventing Max from approaching. His barking alerts the rest of the pack, who come to his aid. Together, the dogs successfully chase away the sea leopard, but Maya sustains a serious injury to her back leg. This time, the pack does not abandon their leader. They diligently bring Maya food, and Max assumes the role of the new leader. At this time, Jerry arrives in the port city of New Zealand, from where icebreakers depart for Antarctica. Joining him at a local bar are Katie and Coop. They have been recruited by Dr. McLaren for his new expedition, for which he had to allocate funds from a science grant. Pooling their efforts, the group embarks on a long and arduous journey, to reach one of the nearest polar bases. Coop has a girlfriend who works there, giving them insider knowledge about a rover that enables them to reach Victoria Station. Upon their arrival, Jerry immediately heads towards the dog chain. The first dog he finds is Jack.
It's old Jack. Came all this way and they didn't even make it off the chain.
Continuing his search, Jerry comes across a torn collar, which fills the group with hope. In a sudden realization, he picks up the entire chain, finding all the other collars torn off as well. At this moment, we hear the barking of a dog. Max emerges on the horizon, followed by the rest of the pack.
Come on, kids!
Jerry observes the 5 surviving dogs before him and realizes that not all have made it. Later, during the loading process, Max refuses to jump into the rover. Instead, he leads Jerry to Maya, who is weak but still alive, thanks to Max's support. The group gathers the dogs and sets off for home.
How's your girl?
This film was dedicated to all the Antarctic explorers and their dogs, whose resilience and courage served as inspiration for the film. And as always, I want to thank everyone who watched to the end. Your likes and comments help a lot in the development of this channel.